Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar Python for IT Professionals. This is Ehtisham Hussain, your host for at least 1 hour. You may have read my short bio when you signed up for the webinar. If you didn't, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I've been working in the IT industry for almost 8 years now. I'm a digital marketer by profession, and I'm really passionate about how training is delivered and retained and implemented in an online setting. I could go on and on about myself, but let's move on to the real star of this show, Wajih Qidwai. Wajih is a Microsoft certified trainer with more than 20 years of experience in designing, developing, and implementing critical business solutions. He has trained thousands of students in SharePoint configuration, administration, and development. He also teaches web development courses such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, and technologies based on .NET Framework and Python. I'm sure you've read about him before you registered, and I'm sure many of you are here because you read about him. He's one of the most experienced instructors in our team, one of the most coveted by students as well, and he has put a lot of work into this webinar. So Wajih, do you mind telling us why you chose this topic?
Well, thank you very much, Ehtisham. This is Wajih here. I selected this topic because Python has been a rebirth in popularity over the last few months. I think you told me that some of the Python related blog posts on our site saw an exceptional growth in organic traffic, and that is in line with marketing trends. So I thought this would be a great topic to begin with.
Thank you. So I see some new people have joined us. I just want to welcome those who have just joined us. Welcome to the webinar, Python for IT Professionals. We are with Wajih Qidwai, and we're just about to start with the presentation. So let's get started. Over to you, Wajih.
Thanks, Ehtisham, again. Before I start this session, I would like to let everyone know that you can send your questions throughout this session whenever you want. We will address some of the questions during the sessions and the rest of at the end of it. I'll try to answer all the questions that come in, but if there are too many, so what you can do, you can always drop Ehtisham an email at marketing@quickstart.com, or probably you can join us at the Expert Connect, one of the excellent platform. You can connect us at the expertconnect.quickstart.com. I believe Ehtisham has already posted the link in the chat window. So let's start with this Python. By the way, the title of this webinar is Python for IT Professionals. The title is not Python for the developers of or probably the Python for the web developers or database developers. You can be anyone. The agenda of this presentation is very simple. The agenda is, number one, why learn Python? There are already so many languages available out there, and why this new language? So we will concentrate on this first question, why learn this Python? The second thing that we will cover is what this Python is all about. What can we accomplish in the Python? What are the advantages of using the Python? Why not work in other programming languages? By the way, I will not go into the too much comparisons with each programming languages, because each language has its own pros and cons. Then we will also discuss what can be achieved using this Python. What different kinds of applications can be created using this Python platform. And finally, I will advise that how to begin with the Python, because there are number of audios, number of videos, number of trainings, all those sorts of things are available, but there has to be a right way to start with any language that is not specific to Python, but I would say with any language, okay? But over here in very specifically, I will talk about the Python. So we will also learn that how to begin with the Python. So once again, it doesn't matter who you are. Okay, whether you are a web developer, you have been creating web applications using any kind of platform, probably the C#, probably the Java, the PHP, any kind of platform. Or probably you are a data scientist. You have been doing a lot of machine learning these days, and you have been dealing with the big data. So you are welcome as well. You might be a database developer. Your core job might be to develop some kind of application where the data is stored in any database, and then data is retrieved, and then it is presented in front of users. Probably you can do such kind of operations using some web applications, or there might be some requirement to create a desktop applications. Okay, so you can interact with the database anytime. You can also be a system administrator. Your job is to manage your entire networks, or probably manage your systems within the organizations. You might be a beginner. You know nothing about anything, about any language, about any database, about anything. Okay, so you are equally welcome. And probably you are looking for some kind of Internet of Things. Okay, you want to play with some things, or you want to create some kind of environment. So you are welcome as well. First of all, why Python? Let me start with a small story of mine. I started my career somewhere around in 1993, 1994. And my first computer course was DBase, as I remember. And I was taking that course without any prior programming experience. I had zero experience when I registered in this course. I have no hesitation in saying that it was a very terrible time for me, and I struggled a lot. After a few sessions, I actually got very frustrated and I gave up. But luckily, I had a very good instructor, and I'm still very thankful to him that he guided me and suggested me that I should learn not the DBase, which is not the right way of learning something, or not to start in IT industry. Rather, there is a language available, and the name of that language was the basic language. According to the name, it appears in our minds that probably we are talking about the computer basics, but obviously that was not the case. So he suggested me that basic language, and instead of learning DBase, I started my working on the basic language. And it worked for me. There were reasons behind it. And one of the main reasons was it was very simple. And it was extremely simple. It was extremely easy to write programs in that language. And as compared to DBase, which was very hard to understand at that time, I grasped this basic language very easily. Using this basic language, it cleared my mind about the programming. How to write program, why write program, how to write instructions, all these different kind of things. If any one of you is familiar with this basic language, so there were line number 10, 20, 30. Okay, so something like that was there. So anyway, I learned this basic language, and then I went back to my DBase course. And fortunately, I was able to understand and perform very well in that class. Although I developed many programs in the DBase. However, at one stage, I was asked to develop a program where some interaction with the operating system was required, which obviously could not be accomplished through the DBase, or at least I didn't know the way to interact with the operating system using the DBase, or even the Foxbase or the Fox Pro, because by that time I had already started working on in these packages. So once again, I went back to the basic language and I tried to find something which could be used to interact with the operating system. And unfortunately, I couldn't find anything in basic language either which could simply interact with the operating system. At that time, again, I learned another new language. And this time the language was the C language. And it is hard to learn, by the way, whether it's a C or the C++, it is not that much simple language. So I learned that C language and I found that OS level or the operating system level interaction could be possible using this language. But as I said, that learning the C language itself was a complete task. Not only complete, rather it was a complicated task. So all in all, for performing various types of jobs, I had to learn different types of languages, or it was required to keep my focus on C language, which was, and by the way, still it is capable of doing all kind of things. However, it is little time consuming and it is not that much simple to understand or to learn a C. Obviously, I'm not against C, but this is the fact. But when I compare the same scenario which I faced few decades earlier with today's available options, the number of options we have today, I feel that life is much simpler and much easier than those days. And instead of learning a different type of languages and different type of tools to accomplish some specific type of jobs, we have some very simple, very easy option available. So those options can be utilized for solving almost any kind of computer related problems these days. Instead of jumping from here to there and then sometime learning one type of syntax and then another time combating with another kind of syntax. So I think these days we have solutions available. Those can be very flexible, and once those are learned, so almost any kind of application can be developed in those solutions. So all in all, instead of learning so many different type of languages, why not learn something which is easy? Obviously, we love easiness and can also be utilized to solve almost all kind of problems. So one of the available option is Python, and that is why we are here. So if you would ever like to transition even to yet another field, you will be set. Okay, which means probably these days you are a database programmer, but later on someone asks you to develop some kind of website. If you know the Python, you would be good enough to do that. So using the Python language, we can do number of different kind of jobs. For instance, we can create websites using the Python. We can perform some kind of data analysis, or even these days, if I call it machine learning, okay? Or probably if you are a scientist and your job is to perform some sort of scientific research and things like that, so Python will be there for you as well. DevOps, I would say, a kind of field which has already emerged in this IT very rapidly, very quickly. So if you want to be a successful person in the DevOps, which is a kind of a marriage between the developers and the operations team, which was always very hard, but it happened anyways. So if you are in the DevOps, so obviously Python can be a good friend in this area as well. Very strange kind of picture. I tried to draw some kind of aquarium with where I have a small fish. The objective was, if you are interested in creating some kind of IoT applications, probably you want to use some kind of sensors, getting the data, and then doing something on that kind of data. So once again, yes, obviously Python is there. Okay, so Python is almost everywhere. So very easily we can say that it's a general purpose language. Learn once and then you would be able to apply it in a number of fields instead of learning different kinds of language as we were supposed to in earlier eras. Okay, so that's the entire purpose of this Python language. As I mentioned earlier, Python is simple. We always love simplicity. Why go into the complexities? Obviously, when we are in IT field, so it is hard to simply say that we hate complexities, but still simplicity is there as well. So Python is a very simple language. On this screen, I have two different type of syntax. For instance, let's talk about this bottom syntax, which is written in Java. Obviously, another programming language, very similar to C# and these kind of languages, or the C++ kind of language. My objective is very simple. My objective is to, let's say, display some kind of output in front of user. Whenever we try to learn some new language, so what we do, we always try to run a kind of program in those languages where we always try to paint or display the hello world. If the hello world is there and we are successfully able to say hello to rest of the world, so we think that at least we are able to successfully configure the environment, and we are successfully able to run a small program. So in case of Java, you will find there are number of lines, number of words are written. So even whenever I try to teach someone, let's say I teach C# language very regularly, very frequently. So whenever I say, okay, let's write a smallest program in the world, and the program is the hello world. So whenever I open my screen, my C# IDE or the interface, so when I write this hello world, so generally the questions are, what are the other things? What is this class? What is this void? What is this main? What is this args? All different kinds of questions are there. And I always say that please, please, please hold for a moment. Don't ask these kind of questions because it is very difficult to explain at this level. There are respective modules, there are respective lessons where I will explain all these kind of things. So probably by the end of module number 8 or module number 6, I get all these different kind of things covered in let's say 6 or 8 modules. Just assume that's a total 10 modules long training. Okay, so all these things are covered in these number of modules. So saying hello world is this much long in the C#, in Java, or in other kinds of languages. However, saying the same kind of thing, hello and hi, to rest of the world, that's the Python, the most simplest language in the world. One of the most simplest language in the world. We are not supposed to write so many things. We are not supposed to write too many statements. We are not supposed to learn too many things or to ignore too many things when we are writing a one simple program in Python. Okay, so Python is a kind of very natural, very humanly kind of language. It is very close to the human language. I will show you some of the scripts, and you will get an idea that at least how we can write some kind of Python programs. By the way, I will not go into the too much of the codings, but just to give you an idea about the Python, I will write some of the code. So all in all, Python is very simple. Once again, why Python? There are a number of reasons. Number one, it's a cross-platform. Technically, it's a scripting language, number one. It codes use no compiler, by the way. And it runs on just about any device that runs the Python shell. Any device which is capable of running the Python shell would also be able to execute the Python code. It can run on every major operating system, whether it's Windows, Linux, Mac, or IBM, or different kinds of operating systems available. Obviously, IBM is not the operating system, but there are operating systems related to that. So it's a cross-platform. Number two, it is broadly adopted. That means there are a number of vendors which are using this Python. So I will come to this point again when we will talk about who is using this Python, or where the Python is used in what kind of applications. Component integration. Python scripts can communicate with other parts of applications using variety of integration mechanisms. Such integrations can allow Python to be used as a product customization and even the extension tools. Today, Python Python code can invoke C or C++ libraries. These can be called from C and C++ programs, can integrate with Java and with .NET Component as well, two of the very popular platforms available these days. It can communicate various kinds of frameworks, for instance, Component Object Model, COM. I would say even the COM, because it was a kind of older technology. It can also interact with various kind of devices, let's say over the serial port, and can interact over the network with interfaces like SOAP, like XML, and many different kinds of format. If we talk about the support of libraries, because I'm sorry, my screen, I'm sorry about it. Okay, so because we have, we judge number of languages, that what options are available for those languages. If we talk about the Pythons, so Python comes with a large collection of pre-built and the portable functionalities known as the standard libraries. Number of libraries are already there. Whenever we installed Python, so you will find number of libraries are installed for various kind of jobs or various kind of purposes in Python. So these libraries, for example, can support different kinds of application. For instance, let's say if you want to match the pattern, the text pattern, or probably if you want to create some kind of network program. So you will find standard libraries are there, and by using those libraries, you would be able to simply write applications. However, Python's third library, or the third-party domain, also offer tools for various kinds of applications. For instance, developing website, if you want to perform some kind of numerical programming, some kind of scientific programs, if you are interested in writing some kind of network applications, if you are interested in creating some kind of games. So number of libraries are out there written by third-party vendors, and by using those different libraries, you would be able to create various kinds of programs in Python. We will visit some of these libraries. Even if you are a .NET programmer, so Python for .NET is also there. A package is available that is Python.net. So you can install the Python.net and you can use the Python.net as well. It has a very supportive community. For obvious reasons, programming languages that lack documentations are never going to succeed. So luckily, we have a lot of resources available, and using all those resources, we can simply find out problems or the solution of those problems very quickly. I always loved Microsoft. One of the reasons behind this love for the Microsoft was their help. They have a beautiful documentation available. I have been working in SharePoint for a very long period of time, and whenever I had any problem, so Mr. Google was there, and there was some solution for me. Okay, so the documentation is one of the very important part, and obviously Python is very rich in this area as well. Corporate sponsors. Obviously, it helps big when a programming language has a corporate sponsor. Mostly people love to use C#, and one of the reasons behind that love is because Microsoft is behind the C#. Obviously, behind the Java, there is a company as well. PHP is used in Facebook. So this is a kind of proof that PHP has a future. In future, it's not going anywhere. Okay, it will not wipe out, because we believe that Facebook will remain there as well. Although their shares dropped a few days back, but still we believe on that. Okay, so what about the Python? By the way, Google adopted Python heavily back in 2006, and they have been using it for many of the platforms and the application since then. So that is why we can trust on this Python language, because there is a sponsor. Google is there. It is hard to imagine if let's say the Google search engine is not there, so what will be the shape of today's world? Okay, it's hard to imagine. So just believe that Python will remain there as well. So this is another reason why the Python is very famous. Let's talk about some of the statistics. Python is ranked among the top 5 programming languages. This is a kind of chart produced by TOB, which is the abbreviation of the importance of being earnest. So TOB Programming Community Index is an indicator of the popularity of programming languages. This index is updated once in a month, each month, and the ratings are based on the number of skilled engineers available worldwide, the courses taken, and the third-party vendors creating the libraries for the Python. Popular search engines like Google, for instance, Google is there, Bing is there, Yahoo, Wikipedia, Amazon, YouTube, all these different kind of sources are used to calculate this rating. And it is important to note that TOB index is not about the best programming language. Okay, it is based on the search. This much number of time the search was performed, and the search was for the Python. So they calculated it, and it's their statistics. So we can very easily find that that Python is available on the number 4. It was in 4th rank in July 2007, and even it is ranked 4 on the July 2018 as well. Another statistic. Why Python again? This time, this is the statistic produced by Stack Overflow. We know that whenever we have some kind of programming problem, we always go towards the Stack Overflow. For instance, we post our questions, we try to find out some solution is there, and most of the time we are able to successfully find the solution. So it is their chat. According to their chat, Python was the most visited tag on the Stack Overflow. Okay, so you can find that where this Python is. So this is another reason that why we should learn this Python. Another statistics. These are the statistics produced by PYPL, Popularity of Programming Language. According to their index, which is, by the way, again created and analyzing how often the language tutorials are searched on the Google. Okay, so in this case, we can very easily find that Python is here. Python is on the top. So once again, you can imagine the popularity of this Python. So these are the different statistics. We can simply look into the Python or the popularity of the Python. So these were the number of reasons. We talked about that why we should learn Python. Python is simple. Python is popular. Behind the Python, I can very easily say that Google is there. Google is using Python in number of their applications, and lots of vendors are creating libraries for the Python. So Python is not going anywhere. And on top of everything, Python is capable of providing number of solutions. We can use this Python anywhere, almost in any kind of solution. So what is this Python? So we have covered that why part. Now we are coming to this what part. What part? By the way, so far any questions?
No, it looks like we don't have any questions for now.
Okay, so let's start this what part. Number one, Python is a high-level programming language. Like many other programming languages, Python is high-level. And we are not supposed to deal with the low-level assembly instructions, which are very difficult to write and very difficult to understand either. When I say high level means as a developer, we are not supposed to deal with the register, with the memory, with the memory addresses, call stacks, all these different kinds of things. So again, very similar to Java, very similar to C#. In Python, we also need to work at the high level. No need to go at the lower level, even when the requirement is to communicate with the operating system. So number of modules, number of libraries are out there, and using all those different libraries, we would be able to communicate with the OS. Easy to read. Whenever I see this word easy, so I always love it. So the Python syntax is designed to be very readable and very straightforward. I just showed you on one of the previous slides. The simplicity makes the Python an ideal language. And it is ideal for the newcomers as well. They are not supposed to learn about too many things when the objective is to run a very small program. Okay, all in all, the result is developers spend more of their time in thinking about the problems they are supposed to solve. rather than thinking about things or about the language complexities, or probably deciphering the code left by some other developers. You know that it is not all the time that you are lucky enough that you will get a job to start something or to start developing a program from the very scratch. Most of the time, whenever you are hired, you are handed over a code written by someone else. So that means you will be your job is to simply try to read someone else's mind. Okay, not even understanding their logic, but sometimes the complicated syntax as well, which is obviously not the case with Python, luckily. Okay, so you will keep your focus on the core objective, on the core business, instead of going into the language complexities. Python is a dynamic language. Yes, we can do everything in Python. It's not that dynamic because of this, but other languages like the C#, like the Java, these are the static languages, which means whenever we declare a variable, we also specify what kind of variable will it be. So for instance, if one of the variable is the type of variable which can store the number, so for rest of its life, it will store the number. We cannot store anything within that variable, anything else other than the number. But luckily, that's not the case with this with the Python. Using the Python, we can store anything in variables. Okay, so I can declare a variable and I can store number in that variable, and later on I can store probably the string in the same variable. So this is the kind of dynamic language. There is always a debate whether the static languages are good or the dynamic languages are good. As I said, again, I think whenever we are writing a program, we should always keep our eyes open when we are dealing with the Python. Okay, so that is a kind of advantage as well. Once again, we can store anything. We are not supposed to think about whether the type of this variable should be integer or the long or the float or the string or the or any other different kind of type, number of types available in the programming language. So this is the kind of I would say blessing in Python. Again, some debatable topic. Okay, Python is a multi-paradigm programming language. Python is a kind of language which supports both type of programming. When I say both type of programming, that means object-oriented, always scary, which is all about defining and managing data. Program is normally divided into small parts known as objects. And as I said, that sometimes it is scary just because, as I showed you the Java language code on one of the previous slide, it was pure object-oriented code. So that is why there were so many things over there. And for some of the programmers, especially for the newcomers, those who are not well versed with the object-oriented concept, it's very difficult for them to understand all those things at first look. It takes some time. However, in Python, which is itself is the object-oriented programming language, but using the Python, we can create object-oriented program, as well as we can still create, or we can still write structural code as well, which is all about following some routine or procedures. Okay, importance is not given to data, rather it is given to functions. Number of functions are there. Okay, so both type of programming can be possible in Python. Again, it is a kind of scripted language, which means the program is not compiled, the program is interpreted. Once again, another very debatable area whether we should go with the programming languages which are compiled, because obviously those are fast, but obviously when we there are always pros and cons, as I mentioned. So I cannot say that this is the kind of disadvantage, but again, this is always a debatable area. Okay, let's say you want to use the Python. So the first thing you will have to do is you will have to decide either you want to go with the Python 2.x versions, or you would like to go with the 3.x versions. Obviously, if you are starting your Python, so you will always, and you should always, and you must always go with the newer versions, which means the 3.x family. The main difference between these two is there is no compatibility between these two. If you have written or if you have developed an application in 2.x family and now you want to use the same application on 3.x platform, so you will have to migrate that. Okay, so that is one reason. So if you are starting new, so obviously you will download this 3.x version. So you can download this these versions or this version from python.org/download. So you can go over there, you can visit their site, and you can simply select the appropriate version, whether you want to install it on Windows, on Linux, on Mac, wherever you want to install it. You will download the appropriate installation, and then you will simply you will install it. So again, whether you want to use the 30-bit version or the 64-bit version, whatever version you want to use. Required IDE, number of IDEs are there. For instance, IDLE, it is the kind of IDE which is the part of Python. So whenever you download the Python, so IDLE is downloaded as well. But there are other IDEs available as well. For instance, PyCharm is one of the IDE. Visual Studio, one of the very popular one. We have the Visual Studio, and within the Visual Studio, we can simply download the templates related to Python if those are not there by using the NuGet packages. PyDev for the Eclipse, it is also there. So number of IDEs are there, and we can use these IDEs. By the way, we are not limited to these IDEs. You will also find number of other IDEs. So because of the space limitation and because of the time constraint, I didn't mention all those over here. If we talk about the building blocks of any programming language, so generally, whenever we construct any program, so there are different sections of within that program. By the way, the building blocks which are mentioned here, once again, these are not specific to Python. I think. Okay, I'll come to that point. Okay, so number of number of building blocks are there. Okay, so once again, these are not specific to this programming language. Rather, whatever programming language you try to learn, these are the things that you normally learn as a first thing in that programming language. And as I mentioned, that whenever we develop any kind of programming language, in those programming languages or in those programs, we have different portions. For instance, there is a portion related to input where we simply get the input either from the user, from some sensors, or probably get from some other sources. Okay, so generally the input portion is there. Then there is some output section, which means there are some commands which simply output something probably on a screen, or sending something on printer, or probably reading the data and then playing something on the audio or video player. So output could be any output. Then we have number of sequential statements, like the way we define those statements in a manner, the statements, or in a sequence that statements should run. We normally learn the conditional executions, which means if this thing happens, do this, or something else happens, do something else. We also sometimes there are requirement to repeat some execution, okay, perform the set of instructions or set of statements repeatedly again and again, okay. So in that case we use some kind of loops, or sometimes there are requirement to write some kind of code that can be repeated, which means the same kind of code can be used somewhere else as well. So we always think about the reusability point of view. So no matter which programming language you learn, in all those programming languages, you simply deal with all these different sections in your program, and for those sections we have all these different building blocks available. Okay, objects are there, so number of objects for doing various kinds of jobs are already available by default in Python. If my objective is to calculate the square root, so there is the math library available, and within the math library I have, or I can say there is a math object available. So you can simply use the math object just to calculate that square root. I can declare the variables to store something. We can write conditions. If this thing happens, do this thing or do something else, which means if then else is available. Obviously there is a no keyword in Python like then, but if else, if else, all these different things are available. Looping are available if we want to do something repeatedly, so looping is there as well. We can define our functions if we want to achieve the reusability of the code, so we can define in the functions. The data structures are there, which means we can store list of something. So for instance, my objective is to store the 100 names. So instead of declaring 100 variables, what we can do, we can define one structure, and then we can simply store all the things related to that structure. Modules are there, as I mentioned. A number of modules are predefined modules are available in Python. However, as a programmer, to better manage my program, we can create our own modules as well, and then we can reuse those modules. Classes, obviously, we can create the object-oriented programming. Or we can write the object-oriented program, so we can create the classes in Python as well. As I mentioned, the other option available as well. Okay, so how Python as a scripting language is different from other scripting language. Using this scripting language, we can do anything. So let's compare this Python with the PHP. Okay, we are very limited with the PHP. Okay, probably we cannot perform all sorts of operations using the PHP. If my objective is to perform or to do some kind of big data or the machine language or all these kind of things, so PHP is not there. Okay, so Python is there, obviously. Okay, so that is one of the reason this scripting language is different than the other other scripting language. It is capable of doing almost all kinds of jobs. Now, we talked about too much what is this Python. Now let's talk about what can be achieved using this Python. So for instance, we know why we should learn. What was the Python? Now we know the Python. Okay, we are experts in the Python. So let's talk about what we can accomplish in the Python. So for instance, if my job is to develop some kind of website, I can do that in Python. In order to develop the website in Python, we have number of different frameworks available. For instance, one of the very popular framework is this Django framework. It is extremely popular, full features available. It provides the server-side web framework written in the Python again. So it also provides a rapid application development, creation of the secure websites. All kinds of features are available in this Django. So it can be used for any kind of websites, whatever kind of website you want to develop. So for instance, your job is to create a content management system, you can use this Django. Or probably you want to create some kind of wiki site, you can use Django. Your job is to create some kind of social network or probably some kind of news site, you can use Django. So Django is one of the very popular framework available for the web development in Python. Although there are many others, for example, Flask is there, Web2Py is there, Pyramid are there. So these are the other web frameworks which are available. But I would say this is one of the framework, Django, which is very popular. The popularity, if I judge the popularity, if I evaluate the popularity of this Django, so you will find that Instagram site, for instance, is completely built on top of this frameworks. Another site, Pinterest, it is also built on this framework. I also talked about the news website. So Washington Post, it is a kind of website, and you can just imagine the number of users which visit Washington Post website each day. So you can simply imagine, or you can simply evaluate the performance and the stability of this Django framework. Okay, another useful framework is this Flask, a kind of micro framework. Number of things are available, and you can develop number of things which are not there. Data sciences. Obviously, I'm talking about the data sciences. Let's talk about the science in general. For years, let's say, academic scholars and the private researchers, they have been using the MATLAB language for the scientific research. And just to tell you that it is changing it. With the release of Python numerical computation engines, for instance, the NumPy or the SciPy, which means numerical Python or the scientific Python. Okay, these are the kind of engines which are allowing complex calculation to be done very easily. Okay, so the Python is the kind of language which is becoming the first choice whenever it comes to creating some kind of scientific research type of solutions. Data analysis, again, has become one of the fastest moving areas of IT and one of the Python's star use case, I would say. There are a number of libraries available which are used for the data sciences, or those are used for the machine learning. Those are the libraries which are written in Python, and we can use all those different kind of libraries. So whenever we talk about the machine learning, so in machine learning, you will find all these different, for the machine learning, you will find all these different kinds of libraries are out there. And by using all these different kinds of libraries, you can create data analysis, you can perform machine learning, because the complexities are covered in these different libraries. Panda is there as well, and once again, the job is the Panda. Another library is very simple, importing and processing the data. It's a kind of library for data scientists. It's a kind of package toward the data analysis. Okay, so you can think it's a kind of SQL, your database. Obviously, it is not, but the entire job is very similar to the database. I was installing SQL Server 2017 few days back, and I noticed one thing. You will find something over here. For the machine learning, we had this R language, but now in SQL Server 2017, you will find this Python as well. So you can once again just imagine the use of the Python when it comes to machine learning. So Microsoft also included this Python language because of the popularity of this language into the SQL Server 2017. So once again, if you are asked to do something in SQL Server, where is your background or your probably objective or your skills have nothing to do with the SQL Server, but if you know the Python, so obviously you would be able to perform the machine learning and all these different kind of tasks in SQL Server as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, that this machine learning is the kind of star use case for the Python. It is emerging very rapidly. It is on top, I would say.
So I'll just quickly chime in here. I think we might go a bit over the allocated 1 hour for this webinar, but that's fine. You're all learning a lot, so please do continue.
Thank you very much. It always happens with me in normal trainings as well. I always,
no worries.
Yeah, I always eat some of the lunch times as well. So sorry about that. Okay, what else can we achieve? DevOps. About the DevOps, all I can say is the only constant in the IT industry is the change. Today, the DevOps is defined like it's a kind of next game changer in IT. These are the kinds of things that we listen these days. About the DevOps, it's a kind of blend. It's a kind of combination of application development and the operations. As I mentioned, that it is a kind of marriage which was always very difficult. The overall objective behind this DevOps is to minimize or to eliminate the disconnect between the software developers who ultimately design the software, develop the application, and the system administrator. So these were the two different worlds. So the DevOps is there. So objective is to minimize or to eliminate the distance between the development team and the system administrators. The objective again is of the DevOps is to enable faster release and the deployment cycle by simply taking the advantage of agile development methodology. Okay, develop something quickly, accomplish in a sprint, deploy it very quickly. Okay, so using this DevOps, there is a improved collaboration between the various business stakeholders, for instance, in this case, developers and the ops teams. So what's the role of Python over there? DevOps automation is a new kind of trend that can basically address the inefficiencies and complexities of the provisioning. So Python is one of the primary languages used by teams which are practicing the DevOps these days. It is compatible with most operating systems and easy to use language because of which it is one of the most popular language amongst the developers and the DevOps community. So over here, I have just mentioned some of the configuration management software. For example, this Ansible, the OpenStack, the Salt. These are some softwares, and these are the softwares which are normally used in the DevOps community very commonly, very regularly. So, for instance, if you have this Ansible, this is, by the way, another kind of application which is written on top of Python. And again, if you want to customize, if you want to alter this application, all you need to learn is Python. If you have the existing knowledge of the Python, so you would be able to change the workflows within this Ansible. OpenStack is another set of software tools for building and managing cloud computing platform for public and private clouds. And once again, Python can be used within this OpenStack to make changes within this software. Salt is another Python-based open source configuration management software. So these are the few things, or these are the few softwares which are very famous in DevOps community. And if you know the Python, so obviously you can make number of changes. You can customize these different configuration management software as per your need. Internet of Things, another emerging field. These days we have everything very smart. Okay, everything can communicate with every other thing. Okay, probably we can communicate to multiple appliances. Those appliances can simply produce some results, and then we can consume those results. So smart houses are there. Let's say if the job is to simply get the temperature and the humidity of some place, so probably we can accomplish that using the Python, using the IoT. So when we talk about the IoT, not IoT, I'm sorry, too much Python. So whenever we talk about this, so generally we also talk about the Raspberry Pi. I can say that Pi is a budgeted desktop. You can call it a media center or whatever you want to make it. It can become that. So it can be a game console, a router of, it can become a router as well. So it was originally, by the way, introduced for some microcomputers, and the objective was to teach the children the coding. Okay, so they could also broke these kind of devices, and because it is very cheap, not that much expensive, so we could simply purchase another one. So that was one of the advantage. But the scope has increased over the period of time, and the extended significance, let's say, it extended significantly once the number of hobbyists and the engineers involved in it and realized its potential. And it is now one of the most popular technology items in the world. Okay, we are every other day we always hear something about whether this kind of IoT based solution is coming or some other kind of IoT based solution is coming. Once again, in this Raspberry Pi, I think by this time you will be very clear that what is this Pi. Okay, so this is the Python. So if obviously other languages are there, Python is not the only language, or it is not the language which is restricted for the IoT. But using this device, if you know the Python, so you would be able to simply do some electronics very quickly, write your code, bishum, you are there. Application scripting is also possible. So I have mentioned some of the softwares I never ever used, okay, because I'm not good at at these kind of graphics. So for instance, Maya is there. The role of the Maya is it's a 3D animation, modeling, simulation, and rendering software, by the way, which provides a kind of integrated, powerful toolset environment. So once again, you can use Python. If you just believe me that the mouse pointer I am hovering over, this is the place where this Python is written. Okay, so we can write the Python, and by writing this Python, we can simply instruct our objects, do these kind of things, perform these kinds of different operations. Similarly, we have another software available. The name of this popular software is the Blender. Again, it's a free and open source 3D computer graphics software. And once again, within this software, we can also use the Python. So on the left side, you can, if it is visible, so you can guess that this is the kind of Python which is written to, once again, instruct these different kinds of objects to perform some kind of things in. Okay. So who is using Python? Number of companies are using. I have already mentioned this Google. So for instance, Google is extensively using this Python in their web search engine. Okay. Initially, the the number of components were written, as I know, in C, C++, and in other languages, but believe me, those were recoded in Python. Similarly, the web crawler was written in Java, but later it was converted into Python. Converting something like a search engine of Google, there must be some reason behind it, some very, very, very solid reasons behind it. Okay, so anyway, so these are the things which are created in Python in Google's area. If we talk about Yahoo, number of components are written in Python. If we talk about the Dropbox, which is a cloud-based storage systems which uses Python in its desktop clients. So the Netflix is also using this Python for number of type of different analysis. Similarly, Spotify, it is also using the Python for number of reasons. Most of the reasons are related to the data analysis. So finally, how to begin? My advice is very, very, very simple. My advice is, whether you know some language or not, you need to start with the fundamentals. Learn all those different things which are 100% applicable in other areas, whether you want to write some kind of Raspberry Pi app, or you are interested in Django for creating websites, or you want to interact with the databases, or your objective is to create some kind of desktop GUI, whatever is your objective, you need to start with this learning Python fundamentals. When you have these fundamentals, you can very easily jump in any of your favorite area. If you are a web developer, you are a data scientist, or whatever you are, or whoever you are, or whatever you like, so you can jump into that area. Number of things are available on internet. There is this official website of Python, python.org. You can go to this site and you can find number of tutorials over there as well. However, a Quick Start is also offering some kind of courses. So if you are interested, so you can contact to the sales and the marketing department of Quick Start, and I will be teaching this course. So, well, thanks for joining the session, everyone. I would love to hear anyone's feedback on it, and let's do it again sometime later. If there are any questions, so please do let me know.
So it looks like we don't have any questions right now, guys. Thank you for attending the webinar. If we are going to send a recording of this webinar to everyone who attended, we are also going to send it to everyone who signed up. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Wajih. I'm available at marketing@quickstart.com. Wajih is a pretty active member of our Expert Connect community, expertconnect.quickstart.com. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.